Welcome to the Jewish Exponent Podcast. I am your host, Jared Safran. We are here today with Lizzy Savetsky. Lizzy, how would you describe yourself? Influencer, you're,
I guess it's hard to put me in a box, but I guess I would
yeah,
call myself a digital influencer and a Jewish activist,
okay. And
if
you
I had to.
were supposed to be on Real Housewives of New York City, but you ended up not appearing due to anti-Semitic backlash. I know that's something that comes up a lot if you do research about you.
It is
Fine.
unfortunately something that I haven't been able to shake yet, but maybe one day people will talk about something else in relation to me.
Fair enough. I think you've outran it at this point. You also appeared at Congregation Bethel here in the Philadelphia area in Maple Glen at the beginning of the month. And that night, frankly, I was amazed by the size of the crowd. I don't know if I fully comprehended your influence before that, but 500 people, mostly women, I would say about 98% of them women, came out on a
Mhm.
Monday night in winter to see you speak. So that was pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I have to say, since October 7th, every speech that I've done has been oversold, every
Yeah.
single one. And I think that's just a testament to the Jewish people really wanting to show up right now. And,
Yeah.
in the past, when it would have been harder to get people out on a Monday night, I think people are just so much more motivated to feel a part of the community and to listen to what they can do, how they can step up. And I'm grateful to be in a position to hopefully empower them. And it's been very rewarding and very humbling.
Yeah, you talked a lot about using your influence that night. And one thing you talked about that I want to discuss with you here today was fighting the media war post October
Mhm.
7th. There's obviously a war on the ground going on, but fighting the media war too, because narrative warfare is, of course, just as important, and Israel's perception matters a great deal here. You are someone who, you're not a part of the Israeli government, you're not a part of the US government. You don't have any official role here, but you're out there using your celebrity, using your influence to fight the media war for Jews and for Israel. And I think that's something that a lot of people are confused on how to do. So, what are some ways in which you try to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually it's interesting. People always ask me if I am interested in going into politics, and it's passed through my head, but I think I actually have more influence as just a civilian, as just a human being, because I have no agenda other than to get the truth out there and to
Mm.
fight for my people. There's no, I'm not motivated by anything else. There's no other factor at play, no money, no, it's just my passion and my heart.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say um, that first of all, not everyone has to have a large social media following in order to fight the good fight. I think that's the first most important thing to say. There's a quote that I love from Voltaire: "Cultivate your own garden." And that's about working within your own sphere of influence, and using whatever gifts God gave you to to make an impact in the world. So whether that's in your workplace, in your neighborhood, um, in your home, training your children just by having these difficult conversations with them and not having like a closed door policy on these difficult subjects with young kids. I think these are the places where we can really make an impact. And I always tell people that activism really starts in a one-on-one conversation. That's how eyes are really opened, when you're really looking at somebody and it's a heart to heart moment. And it's very easy when we go online to just get super angry and to hide behind our keyboard. But when you're looking someone in the eye, it you're seeing their humanity and they're seeing your humanity, and you can truly make a change in that way.
Yeah.
And so, so I think that every single person out there can and should be an activist for this cause, for fighting for our hostages, for fighting anti-Semitism, for spreading the truth for Israel in a world where there are so many lies out there, more lies than truth. really. Um, and you know, in terms of social media, which is really where my battlefront is, I would say it doesn't matter how big your following is. There are things you can do. I think that the most effective way to fight on social media is to talk to the camera because, as I was saying with the one-on-one conversations, when you're making eye contact with the camera and when you're really showing your vulnerability, it has a much deeper impact than just posting text or just sharing somebody else's content. If you're too afraid to do that, it's great to amplify the other voices out there. People like me, we're getting reported around the clock by these bot accounts, by the haters. And so, all of the support really does matter. It's not just to feed our egos, it's to help other people see the truth out there.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, I think just keeping it at the forefront of every thought we have and every conversation that we have, as we go throughout our days and have whatever interactions we have.
How should you pick and choose which social media you do this on? Because there's a lot. I don't know too many people who are active on like three different social media. People tend to have one or two that they really like to go
Yeah.
on. So how would you go about doing that?
It's interesting. Like I don't go on TikTok just because I find it to be just a cesspool of anti-Semitism. I'll post something completely unrelated to Israel or the Jewish people, and I still get people giving me death threats because I'm Jewish. So, but I do share all of my videos on TikTok. And I just don't, I post and I don't engage with anything else. I don't look at the comments because I do think it's important to have a presence there.
Mhm.
So I think, if recycling content, you'll see a lot of people who are very active on Twitter share whatever they tweeted on Instagram. You already posted it. So you may as well share it to as many platforms as you can because you never know what new eyeballs are going to get on it.
Right.
You never know who's going to share, who's going to retweet. Um, so, as much as you can, I would say it's good to have a presence on all of the platforms. But, some people are better with words. Twitter is their bread and butter. So, go with that. Some people, for the young people out there, TikTok, we really need all the voices on TikTok telling the truth for Israel and the Jewish people there. It's just horrible. If you need to limit your comments, do that. But yeah, I think there's not a platform out there that we don't need to be on. We really need to have a presence on all of them.
I asked you this when you were at Beth Or that night. It didn't end up making it into the story, but I do think it's worth revisiting here. Do you think it's worth fighting on social media? Because sometimes it can really feel like a waste of time to just post on social media to try to get your opinion out there because you may not convince anybody. Their reaction is either they're going to agree with you passionately or they're going to disagree with you passionately. And whatever they already think is going to be what they continue to think. So, what do you say to that?
You're not alone in that statement. And I have had to reframe my thinking in the past 3 months. And when I make my content, I am specifically talking to my own people
Right.
and trying to empower them to feel like they don't have to be afraid to speak the truth, to fight the fight. Um, that is my mission, and I think if I keep that as my goal, then I will be successful. I really don't waste time arguing with people whose minds I'm never going to change because that's just such a waste of energy for me,
Yeah.
and for anyone, and it will leave you feeling defeated.
Right.
But I really believe in my heart that the best way to fight anti-Semitism is with Jewish pride. And so for me, that could be anything from wearing, a Magen David or a yarmulke to sharing our own personal Jewish experience, our own personal family stories. Personal stories really do have a way of touching people in a way that just stating a bunch of facts and statistics doesn't. So if you come from a family of Holocaust survivors, talking about them, sharing those stories, I mean, those are a great gateway to opening up conversation around these difficult subjects. Because what is somebody going to say to your own personal story? How
Mm.
can they argue with your own experience? And I just, yeah, I mean, I think um, whatever way makes you feel like you're a proud Jew, whether it's, you know, the bagel you're eating, the holiday you're celebrating, and sharing that to the world, it's making a statement like we're not going anywhere. We're
Mhm.
loud, we're proud, and we're here to stay.
Yeah. I shouldn't caricature the social media experience too much either. I think dunking can be insufferable when people try to do it, but I go on X probably more than any other social media outlet. I've had my mind expanded or even changed by plenty of thoughtful threads on there. It's a pretty common experience actually, so it is possible to do. But you're
Yeah.
right, it's better to probably be thoughtful about it than to try to dunk on the other side, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not to say that that my content isn't going to open up people's eyes. I mean, that of course is the, you know, that's the biggest victory if when that happens. And it does happen for me. I've seen it.
Mm,
Um, but I just try, you know, I want to feel like I'm actually accomplishing something with every piece of content that I make. And so even just empowering my own people is enough for me.
yeah. Makes sense. So would you recommend talking to your own people, or would you recommend expanding beyond that too? Because I think you said this at Beth Or, but you can convince certain people who are in the middle. You know, there are a lot of people on social media who are not vehemently on the other side.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, even a lot of Jews are just not that knowledgeable about a lot of these topics. And why should we be? You know, it's kind of insane that we suddenly have to be experts on the entire history of the Middle East.
Right.
I mean, there's no other people that are forced to defend ourselves in the way that we are on a constant basis because of the media storm against us. So, um, you know, I think I try to talk to the least educated person in the room when I'm making my short videos so that it's succinct, it's digestible, it's entertaining,
Yeah.
um, so that anyone can really walk away with a firmer grasp on whatever topic I'm covering.
Mm. How do you decide what to post and when, especially post October 7th?
Yeah, so you know, I have a list of topics that I get to depending on what the breaking news is.
Mm,
So the first priority for me is always going to be breaking news, whatever is happening in that moment in time. Um, I always want to be one of the first people to get it up there so that people know about it, so that people will share it, to just start the conversation. And every day, oh my gosh, there are 20 different things I could choose from. It's, you know, between college campuses, the hostages, it's the government. I mean, we have so much to talk about. Um, so, you know, I have a meeting with my husband every morning at 6:30, and we go over what's happening and what is the priority. If I have time, I'll get to a few things. And then if there's nothing urgent to talk about, I will try to just do a quick historical educational video about, um, you know, 5 lies about Israel, like, you know, that Israel's an apartheid state, or, you know, talking about occupation, or just quick educational videos that are easy for anyone to share. Um, you know, talking about how many times Israel's mentioned in the Torah. It's it's things like that that are on my B list when I have
yeah.
time. Um, and then usually on Sundays I'll do something with my kids. Since October 7th, this has really become a family business.
Mm,
The activism, and I say that like not in the sense of making money, just it's a we're a team. We really are.
yeah.
And we were all in Israel on October 7th in a bomb shelter, and my kids came back traumatized. And I really felt like the best way to work through that was to give them purpose. And they actually have come up with some amazing ideas themselves of what they wanted to do. They wanted to take cutouts of the hostages with them to Dave and Buster's to play their video games. And I thought that was an awesome idea, to show that no matter where we go, we may be going about our quote unquote normal life, but we're always thinking of them. And oh, I see balloons in the background. That's so fun. Um, and so yeah, it's every day's a little bit different, but for the most part, there's somewhat of a formula I follow.
So this morning at 6:30, what were you guys talking about? And then what did you decide to do today?
So actually my husband's out of town right now,
Okay.
but he did call me, he's in LA and he was up at the crack of dawn there because I guess he's jet lagged. And he did call me and we talked about the I had heard from somebody that the New York Times article was going to be released today talking about the 32 hostages of the 136 who have been declared dead, confirmed dead by Israel. So it's always like a series of, I know something is about to break. Do I wait for it to? I usually wait for it to break because I don't want to be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I'm never afraid to say I'm sorry and correct myself. Social media, things happen quickly. Um, and but usually I like for like a credible news source, if you want to call the New York Times a credible news source. Most days I'm not sure about that. So they broke this story, and then I spoke to so I made a call to a girl that I know that's at the Hostage Family Forum, and I asked her about the details. And she told me that these 30 of the 32 were already confirmed dead. So it's just it's all the taking in all the information and then figuring out what message I want to send, because
Yeah.
this is new news to a lot of people, and it will create a lot of panic if somebody just hears, oh, there are 32 more people dead. So I try really hard to be very careful about how I present things.
Mhm. What's the overall message you're trying to send at this moment about Israel?
Well, I think Israel has been categorized by the larger world as the oppressor in this
Yeah.
story. And it's just simply a lie. And the narrative is that, Israel um, came in, stole this land from the Palestinians, occupies them, doesn't treat them equally, and that Hamas had no choice but to go in on October 7th, rape, murder, kidnap, and burn to the ground these people in these people's homes. And so, I try to get the truth out there that Israel is the most moral and ethical government army in the world. And I think it's also really important to say that Israel's not perfect. No country is, but it's the amount of criticism that Israel gets for its imperfections is so hugely exponentially disproportionate to any other country in the world. And um, I think the bottom line for me is that Israel has a right to exist. That's what it means to me when I say I'm a Zionist, that I believe that Israel has a right to exist. We have a right to self-determination and homeland. And and the jihadi ideology is that Israel does not have a right to exist.
Yeah.
I think it's really just that simple. We
Yeah.
want to exist. They don't want us to exist. And, I think any human being out there who doesn't believe. I mean, where would they like the Israelis to go? Where, so it's pretty simple. I think people make it a lot more complicated than it is.
Do you ever get tired of repeating the same rebuttals to the falsehoods? Because there are a lot of falsehoods out there about this. I mean, Palestinians have rejected two-state solution every time it's been proposed,
Yeah.
including one that would have given them 83% of the territory. Uh, it's not an apartheid state. Arabs who live in Israel have all the same rights. So do you ever get tired of repeating this over and over again?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it can get redundant and exhausting. Um, but there's also this part of me that feels free in a way because I realize it's beyond my understanding why so much of the world won't see such a simple truth. And when I can accept that this is out of my control and they are never going to get it because they choose to keep their eyes closed,
Mhm.
then um, I'm going to continue to speak the truth. Israel's going to continue to fight for our right to exist. And we're just going to do what we have to do, and just kind of let go instead of continuing to try to, you know, nail down a brick wall. It's fighting a losing battle in that sense. So
I think
doing what we need to do. And,
yeah,
instead of trying to just convince people constantly.
yeah. I think the natural instinct for a lot of Jews is not necessarily to hide, but to not be quite as out there as you like to be. But you seem to believe that it's very important to put yourself out there in a loud and proud way. So why do you believe that?
Well, I mean, it's been, I've been not surprised at all, but extremely disappointed by our collective failure to show up and fight for ourselves.
Hmm.
You know, I think that the reason it's so important to stand up as a proud Jew is because we have nobody else to stand up for us.
Yeah.
We have stood beside every other marginalized group through it all, and fought with them and understood to whatever extent we can their oppression through our own oppression, our own history. Um, and in these moments, we are completely alone. And so if we don't stand up, who will?
Yeah.
We have nobody else. And
Hmm.
I think I get very angry when I see people who have so much influence, particularly in Hollywood. We just had the Grammys. There are a lot of very powerful Jews in these industries that have an opportunity to do something good, to really open people's minds and hearts, and they choose to stay silent. And for me, I can't even understand it because it's just not how I was made. If I have an opportunity to make a positive impact in the world, of course I'm going to. And, all these people that say they're doing things behind the scenes, like, what is that doing? When your power is in front of the scenes, that's where you need to be calling to make a difference. And so yeah, I've been disappointed, and I know that you can't bully people into stepping up, but I think I I don't know what it's going to take. What level of desperation. One of my favorite stories, I mean, it's not a positive story, but it's a very telling example, is about Einstein, he did not consider himself to be a Jew. He was a German. Had no real tie to his religion, but he had to flee Europe. He had to flee Germany to save his own life. And it didn't matter how famous he was, how successful he was. He had to come to America or he would have died in the gas chamber. And I think a lot of these powerful people in these industries, um, they think they're going to maintain their friendships with people by staying quiet. And what kind of a friendship is that?
Mhm.
If you have to, if you have to keep your core identity quiet in order to keep this relationship, it's all a sham. It's a lie.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to say it, but I do think it's going to take a really desperate situation to wake these silent Jews up.
Mhm.
I wish that, I wish that they would just, this would be enough for them.
Lizzy Savetsky, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.